Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's story. I promise it's going to be a fun one.
She's fine. She's just being dramatic. Jessica said it like my daughter was an inconvenience, not a child. I stared at her and waited for the rest. For her to point at Ava's hand. For her to say she was right there. Instead, she laughed. Linda didn't even turn around. Mark kept watching the street like nothing mattered. The parade music was loud enough to swallow my voice. I asked again, slower, "Where is Ava?" Linda waved at the crowd, careless. "Somewhere over there." She wanted to sit. My chest went cold. An 8-year-old. No phone. No adult. Hundreds of strangers. And the people who promised to hold her hand had decided the parade was more important. If you've ever had family dismiss your child to keep the peace, tell me in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone. I'm Megan. I live in Naperville, Illinois. I work a regular job and I keep my world small on purpose. Because my world is my daughter, Ava. Ava was 8 that summer. She's 9 now, and she hears more than people think. When I married Jason, I didn't ask him to replace anyone. Ava's father isn't in our daily life, and I won't dress that up. Jason didn't try to force himself into a role. He earned it with patience. He proved quietly that Ava came first. Not with speeches, with choices. His family didn't work like that. There was this invisible line I could feel the first time we visited. Jason's niece and nephew, Ethan and Chloe, were adored without question. Ava was measured, watched, corrected, like she had to earn the right to be in the photo. Linda, Jason's mom, had a smile that could turn sharp in a second. Jessica, his sister, acted like she was joking even when she wasn't. Ava is sensitive. That word gets used like an insult, but it's just true. She feels things in her body. She notices tone. She takes people seriously. So when she'd say her leg hurt, or she felt tired, Linda would roll her eyes. Jessica would call it another performance. Once, at a cookout, Ava sat down on the steps and said her foot was hurting. Jessica said, "Here we go," like my child was doing a routine. I watched Ava's face change. Not a tantrum, not tears, just that small retreat, like she decided asking for help was too expensive. Over time, she stopped asking. That's what scares me most. Not the big moments. The training. The way a child learns silence. So when the 4th of July came and Linda suddenly offered to take Ava early to the parade, I hesitated. Linda said she'd get us a good spot near the stage. She said Ava could feel like a real grandkid. Those were her words. And Ava lit up. She wanted it so badly. To belong without being questioned. Jason looked at me like, "Please, let's try." I swallowed my worry. I told myself it was a parade. Daylight. Community. What could happen? We arrived later, weaving through a packed street. Flags everywhere. Heat rising off the pavement. I scanned faces, looking for Ava's hair, her small shoulders. I saw Linda first, then Mark, then Jessica. All 3 of them were standing comfortably on the edge of the road, and Ava wasn't with them. I didn't do a slow walk. I didn't play it cool. I pushed up to them and said her name. Jessica smirked like this was amusing. I asked, "Where is she?" Jessica shrugged. "She was whining. We told her to sit," Linda added, calm as stone. She said her foot hurt. "We can't miss the parade for one kid." One kid. My kid. Their voices stayed low, like I was the one being unreasonable. I asked if she was right behind them. Linda said no. I asked if she was across the street. Jessica pointed vaguely into the mass of bodies. They didn't even know exactly where she was. They had stopped tracking her. They had stopped caring. My mouth went dry. The noise around us kept going. Cheer. Brass band. Kids on shoulders. And in that noise, my daughter had been left alone. Jason didn't argue. He didn't posture. He just moved. He started calling Ava's name and pushing through people, scanning ground level the way you do when you know a child can disappear between adult legs. I followed, trying to keep up, my heart punching against my ribs. I kept thinking, someone could bump her. Someone could grab her. She could panic and run. She could freeze and be stepped on. And the worst part was knowing the people who were supposed to protect her had decided she wasn't worth slowing down. We found her on the sidewalk, tucked near a storefront, knees pulled to her chest. Her little paper flag was snapped, lying beside her like trash. Her face was streaked where tears had dried. When she saw us, she didn't sob. She just looked ashamed. She whispered, "Grandma said I'm slow. She said don't make drama." I knelt and reached for her, and that's when I saw her sock, white, soaked through at the heel. Blood. Her heel was blistered, torn open, raw where the skin had split. She had tried to keep walking until she couldn't. Jason scooped her up like she weighed nothing. He didn't look at Linda. He didn't look at Jessica. He said one sentence, flat and final. "We're going home. If you're still with me, don't scroll away." Because what happened after we left hurt even more. In the car, fireworks cracked in the distance while Ava sat in Jason's arms, quiet. I kept driving, jaw tight. That night she whispered, "I'm sorry I made everyone slow." She meant it. That's when I knew this wasn't just a parade at all. If this hits home, talk to me in the comments. The next morning, Ava walked like she was much older than 9. She tried to put weight on that heel, and then stopped, embarrassed, like pain was something she needed permission to have. I cleaned the wound. Jason stayed close, watching her face the whole time. He didn't ask her to tough it out. He didn't tell her she was fine. He told her he was sorry it happened. He told her she did nothing wrong. Then he picked up his phone. Jason called his mom, his dad, and Jessica, and told them to get on speaker. He didn't yell. That almost made it scarier. His voice was steady, like he'd already crossed a line inside himself. He said, "You left an 8-year-old in a crowd while she was hurt. You didn't know where she was." There was a pause, and then the excuses poured out like water finding a crack. Linda said, "Don't exaggerate." Mark said, "It was right there. It's a parade." Jessica laughed and said, "Kids have to be tougher. Ava is always sensitive." Jason repeated, "She was bleeding." Linda replied, "She was complaining. We can't let one child ruin the day for everyone." I felt my hands curl into fists on my lap, not because I wanted to fight, because I wanted to keep my voice calm for Ava, who was in the next room listening through the wall. Jason said, "You didn't hold her hand. You didn't keep eyes on her. That's neglect." Linda snapped back, "Don't use big words. We're family." There it was. That phrase, like it was a shield that made everything okay. For the family, for her future, for her own good. I finally spoke. I said, "She apologized last night for slowing you down." Jessica's tone turned sharp. "Well, maybe she should. She needs to learn the world doesn't stop for her." My stomach twisted. I pictured my daughter sitting alone on concrete, trying to be smaller so no one could blame her. Jason asked Linda a simple question. "If Ethan's foot was bleeding, would you have left him?" Linda didn't answer. She didn't have to. Silence is an answer too. Jessica cut in, irritated. "Why are we doing this? It's over." Jason said, "It's not over. You need to understand what you did." Linda said, "We did what any normal person would do. We stayed for the parade. She was safe." "Safe," Jason said. "You put her at risk," Linda replied. "You're making us sound like monsters." Jason had named the behavior. They hated that more than anything. The call stretched. The same loop. Deny. Minimize. Blame Ava. Then Jessica sighed dramatically and said, "Honestly, Jason, you're letting Megan run your life." I felt heat rise in my face. The old reflex to shrink, to be polite, to keep things smooth. Jason didn't take the bait. He said, "This isn't about Megan. This is about Ava." Jessica scoffed. "Ava, Ava, Ava. You act like she's..." She stopped, then said it anyway, like she'd been holding it back for years. "She's not even your kid." The room went so quiet I could hear my own breathing. I looked at Jason. His eyes didn't widen. His expression didn't break. But something hardened. He said, "We're done." Linda jumped in fast, realizing the damage. "Jessica didn't mean it like that. You know she talks." Jessica muttered, "I'm just saying the truth." Mark tried the softer angle. "Son, come on. Don't make a big family issue out of this. It's the holiday weekend." Linda added, "Think about your reputation. People will talk. Family sticks together." There it was again. Guilt, duty, image. Jason said, "My reputation isn't more important than a child's safety." Linda snapped, "You're choosing her over us." Jason replied, "Yes, every time." If you're watching and you've ever heard someone dismiss a child with, "She's not really yours. Tell me what it did to you." I'm reading every comment, because that sentence changes a family forever. Jason ended the call. Just a click. Then he sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing for a moment. I waited. Finally, he said, "I've been paying their bills." I knew he helped sometimes. I didn't know it was every month. Rent, car, utilities. He said it like he was ashamed he hadn't told me. I said, carefully, "Why?" He said, "Because they're my parents. Because they said they needed it. Because they told me it was for the family." He opened his banking app and showed me the transfers. Not to impress me, to show me what he was about to stop. He said, "No more." I asked, "Are you sure?" He nodded once. They don't get to treat Ava like a burden and still take from us. That afternoon, Jason sent a message in the family thread. Short, clear, no more money, no more visits without us present. No more pretending yesterday was normal. Linda responded within minutes. She wrote paragraphs about sacrifice, about everything she'd done for Jason, about how ungrateful he was. Jessica added, "You're being manipulated." Jason didn't argue. He didn't debate. He just held the boundary. That night, Ava asked if Grandma was mad at her. Jason sat on the floor in front of her and said, "This is not your fault. Adults made bad choices." Ava nodded like she understood, but her eyes stayed worried. I lay awake later, thinking about that curb, thinking about how easily they had let her go, and thinking about the kind of people who can say "for the family" while sacrificing the smallest person in it. "If you want me to keep going, stay with me." The pressure got louder before it got quiet. The first few days after Jason cut them off felt strangely calm, like the air was holding its breath. Ava stayed close to me. She moved slower, still healing, and she watched faces the way kids do when they're trying to predict weather. Then Linda went to Facebook. A cousin I barely knew texted me a screenshot with one line, "Is this about you?" Linda had written a long post about betrayal, about raising a son who forgot where he came from, about a new wife who turned him against his own mother. She didn't use my name, but she didn't need to. In a town like ours, people connect dots fast. Comments stacked up underneath. Sympathy, heart emojis. People saying, "Family is everything." People saying, "Some women don't know their place." I stared at my phone and felt that old pressure return. The pressure to be quiet so I wouldn't look like the problem. Within a day, Jason's relatives started calling him, not to ask what happened, to tell him to fix it. His aunt said, "You only get one mother." His uncle said, "Your dad is stressed. Don't do this to them." Someone else said, "Think about the kids, the cousins, holidays." Always the same theme. Keep the surface pretty. Sacrifice the person who complains. Jason listened to one call on speaker while I sat at the table. He didn't interrupt. When the person finished, he said, "They left Ava in a crowd. She was bleeding. That's the issue." The voice on the other end said, "It was an accident." Jason replied, "It wasn't. They chose the parade over her." Ava heard enough to ask me, "Are we bad?" I told her, "No, we're just not letting people treat you like you don't matter." She nodded, but I could see her swallowing words. She still wanted to be loved by the people who had hurt her. That's what children do. They reach. Jason decided not to fight Linda in public. Not at first. He said, "I'm not doing a Facebook war." I agreed. I didn't want Ava to grow up watching adults tear each other apart online. But Linda wasn't just venting. She was recruiting. She was building a story where she was the victim and we were the villains. And she was using that story to push us back into silence. Jason started getting messages that were less polite. Ungrateful, heartless, controlled. One person wrote, "That girl isn't even family." Seeing that sentence typed out made my stomach drop. Jessica's line wasn't an accident. It was how they talked when we weren't in the room. Jason showed me his phone and said, "I'm done hiding the truth." He didn't threaten. He didn't exaggerate. He opened a folder he'd kept for years, full of payment confirmations, transfers, bills, receipts, rent. He said, "They've been taking from me for a long time." I said, "Do you want to post it?" He said, "I don't want to. But I won't let them paint you as the problem." So he responded once, not with insults, with facts. He wrote that he had supported his parents financially for years, paying for their housing, their car, and their bills. He wrote that he asked for one thing in return: basic safety and respect for his child. He wrote that leaving Ava alone in a crowd while she was hurt was unacceptable. Then he attached screenshots of the transfers. The tone online changed fast. People who had been loud got quiet. A few still tried to twist it. "You shouldn't shame your mother. Money doesn't matter." But the "for the family" mask cracked. Because suddenly it was clear who had been benefiting, and who had been asked to swallow harm to keep giving. Linda deleted the post later, but it was too late. The screenshots were already saved, shared, whispered about. She called Jason and left a voicemail crying. Not about Ava, about embarrassment, about being attacked. Jason didn't call back. That week, he also canceled every visit that wasn't supervised. Before the parade, we'd tried small gatherings, a dinner here, a birthday there. Jason always stayed near Ava, and I did too. But we had still let Linda take her ahead that morning, because we wanted to believe they could be trusted for 2 hours. Now we knew better. Ava asked if she would ever see Grandma again. Jason said, "Not without me there." Ava said, "Did I do something wrong?" Jason said, "No, they did." I wanted to tell Ava she didn't need their love, but I didn't lie to her. I told her, "It's okay to miss them. It's also okay to be safe." She leaned into me like she was trying to borrow my certainty. If you've ever been told to just keep the peace while your kid pays the price, say it out loud in the comments. I swear naming it helps. The calls kept coming. Some relatives apologized, others doubled down. Linda stayed quiet in public but loud in private, sending Jason messages about how he was ruining the family name. Jessica sent one text to me directly, "Hope you're happy." I didn't answer. I wasn't interested in winning. I was interested in protecting my daughter. Ava's heel slowly closed. The other wound wasn't. She still hesitated before asking for help. She still watched adults for the moment they'd roll their eyes. So I started doing something simple. Every time she said, "My leg hurts," I believed her first. Every time she said, "I'm tired," I offered a break. Not because she needed to be coddled, because she needed to learn that asking wasn't shameful. Jason did the same. He'd stop what he was doing, get down to her level, and say, "Tell me what you need." No judgment, no sarcasm. And slowly, Ava started speaking again. That's when Linda tried one more move. Not online, not through relatives, in person, at a place where she thought rules wouldn't apply. It was a weekday afternoon when the school number popped up on my phone. Ava was in a summer program, the kind that fills the gap when you still have to work and it's too early for camps to feel normal. My first thought was that she was hurt again. My hands actually shook as I answered. A staff member said, "Hi, this is Ava's program. Someone is here to pick her up, but they're not on the authorized list." I asked, "Who?" The staff member hesitated, like she didn't want to step into something personal. Then she said, "Linda." My throat tightened. I pictured Linda walking in like she owned the place, smiling, confident, acting like we were in a misunderstanding she could fix by taking control. I said, "Do not release Ava. She is not authorized." The staff member said, "We won't. We just wanted to confirm." I thanked her, and then I called Jason. He didn't ask me to calm down. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He said, I'm going there. I told him I was coming too. He said, drive safe. That was it. No panic, just action. When we arrived, we saw Linda at the front desk, leaning in, performing concern. She turned when she saw Jason and widened her eyes like she'd been wronged. Oh, thank God, she said. I've been so worried. I just wanted to take her for ice cream. For her own good. Her own good. Always those words, like they gave her permission. Jason kept his voice low, because Ava could be anywhere inside that building. He said, You are not on the list. You cannot pick her up. Linda lifted her chin. I'm her grandmother. Jason said, That doesn't matter. You don't have permission. The staff member stood firm, and I felt a surge of gratitude so sharp it almost made me dizzy. A stranger was doing what family refused to do, protecting my child because rules existed. Linda's expression shifted, quick and controlled. She looked at me and said, Megan, don't do this. She misses us. You're hurting her. I didn't match her volume. I didn't argue about feelings. I said, You left her alone in a crowd while she was bleeding. Linda waved a hand like that was old news. Stop bringing that up. You're trying to punish me. I said, I'm trying to keep her safe. Linda turned back to Jason, softening her voice. Honey, you know I love her. I was going to surprise her. A nice afternoon. We can talk like adults. Jason said, Adults don't ignore a child's pain and call it drama. Linda's cheeks reddened. You're letting your wife poison you. Jason didn't blink. Don't come to her school again. Jessica wasn't there, but I could hear her in Linda's words. The same family script. The same idea that I was an outsider causing trouble. Linda tried another angle. What will people think? You're shutting out your own mother. Jason replied, People can think whatever they want. You will not show up here. The staff member asked if they should call security. Jason said, No, she's leaving. Linda held her ground for one more second, like she expected someone to fold. No one did. Finally, she grabbed her purse, stiff, and said, Fine, but Ava will hate you for this. That line was meant for me. A dagger wrapped in concern. I didn't respond, because if I spoke, my voice might carry, and Ava didn't need to hear the adults in her life bargaining over her like property. Linda walked out. Jason watched her go, then turned to the staff and thanked them. He asked them to note her name, to be extra careful. I signed whatever they needed me to sign. I added Jason's number again. I made sure my own handwriting was clear. When Ava came out, she saw Jason and smiled, relieved. Then she saw my face, and the smile faded. She asked, Did I do something? I crouched down and said, No, you're okay. Jason said, Someone tried to pick you up who wasn't supposed to. The staff did the right thing. Ava's eyes widened. Grandma? Jason nodded. Yes. Ava's shoulders drew in. She didn't run toward the door. She didn't ask to see Linda. She just got quiet, like her body remembered that curb. In the car, she whispered, Was Grandma mad? Jason said, Grandma made a bad choice. That's on her. Ava stared out the window and said, I don't want to be drama. My heart cracked, but I kept my voice steady. I said, You are not drama. You are a kid who deserves help when you're hurting. That night, Jason and I blocked numbers. We blocked social media accounts. We told the program, the school office, anyone who needed to know that Linda and Jessica were not allowed access. We didn't do it with rage. We did it with clarity. The next week, another relative called and tried the same guilt. Linda is crying, Jason said. Ava cried alone on a sidewalk. I'm done. The relative said, But she's your mother. Jason replied, And Ava is my child. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clean. Ava started sleeping through the night again. She started asking for water when she was thirsty instead of waiting. Little signs that she was learning her needs weren't a burden, but there was still one thing hanging over us, like a label they could use whenever they wanted. That sentence. She's not even your kid. Jason looked at me one evening after Ava went to bed and said, "I'm fixing that. If you want to hear what he did next, and how Ava finally got to say the words out loud, stay with me through the next part." Jason didn't say adoption like it was a grand gesture. He said it like it was paperwork that should have been done a long time ago, like the world had a gap in it, and he was going to close it. I felt tears sting, not because I was surprised, but because I was relieved. Linda and Jessica had used blood like a weapon. Jason wanted to take that weapon away. The process wasn't a movie. It was forms, appointments, signatures, waiting. It was us being careful with Ava's heart, while adults asked questions that felt too big for her age. We didn't hide the truth from her, but we didn't dump it on her either. We told her Jason wanted to be her dad in every way that mattered, and also in the ways that show up on paper. Ava listened with that serious face she gets when she's processing something important. She asked, "Does that mean I'm chosen?" Jason said, "Yes, I choose you." She looked at me, checking if it was safe to believe. I nodded. Then she said, quietly, "Okay. If you've ever watched your child carry a label they didn't earn, stay in the comments with me for a second. I want to know what you would have done in my place." Linda didn't accept the boundary, not privately. She sent messages through relatives. She told people we were stealing Ava. She repeated her favorite line, "For her future," like her future required us to pretend she hadn't been left alone and bleeding. We didn't respond. We kept documentation of our decisions, but we didn't create new fights. We just kept the door closed. Ava started calling Jason Dad, sometimes when she forgot to be cautious. It would slip out during homework, or when she wanted him to look at something. Then she'd pause, like she was testing if anyone would punish her for it. Jason never made a big deal. He'd answer like it had always been true. "Yeah, kiddo?" That steadiness mattered more than any speech. The adoption date came about a year after the parade. By then, Ava was 9. Her heel had long healed, but I still remembered that white sock turning red. The courthouse was in our county, quiet and plain, the kind of place where life-changing things happen under fluorescent lights. We dressed neatly, not fancy, just respectful. Ava wore a simple outfit and held my hand in the hallway. Jason walked on her other side. No Linda, no Jessica, no Mark. Just us. The family, they said, didn't count. When we went in, the judge asked Ava some questions in a gentle voice. Nothing dramatic, just making sure she understood. Ava sat up straight. I watched her shoulders, not curled in, not hiding. Jason's knee bounced once under the table, a small sign of nerves, but his face stayed calm. The judge asked Ava how she felt about Jason. Ava looked at him, then looked forward again, and she said, clear as a bell, "That's my dad." I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for a year. Jason's eyes shined, but he didn't cry loudly. He just swallowed and nodded, like he was accepting an honor he planned to live up to. The judge smiled and said a few formal words. Papers were signed. A stamp hit the page. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a parade. It was better. It was quiet proof. Afterward, we took Ava out for a simple celebration. Nothing extravagant, just time together. A meal. A small dessert. Ava laughed more easily than she had in months. The sound was lighter, like she wasn't constantly bracing for someone to call her too much. On the drive home, she asked, "So nobody can say I'm not family?" Jason said, "Nobody." Ava stared out the window and said, "Good." That was all she needed. Later that night, she brought her old parade flag out of a drawer, the little one that had snapped, the one I'd kept because I couldn't throw it away. She held it, looked at the broken stick, then set it down. She didn't ask to fix it. She didn't mourn it. She just let it be what it was. A memory of a day we survived. I thought about Linda's casual wave into the crowd. I thought about Jessica's laugh. I thought about my daughter on concrete, learning to be quiet so adults wouldn't be annoyed. And I thought about what had changed, without adding any new drama at all. We stopped begging to be treated well. We stopped trading Ava's comfort for other people's approval. We stopped accepting guilt as love. Jason didn't win against his family. He simply chose his child and let the consequences land where they belonged. Linda and Jessica lost access to us because they refused to treat Ava like she mattered. That was their choice. I won't pretend it erased the past. It didn't. Ava still remembers who made her feel like a problem. I remember too. But the adoption gave us something solid to stand on. A line that can't be argued with. A name that finally matches the love. Ava is 9 now. She still feels things deeply. She still gets tired. She still needs breaks sometimes. But, she asks, when her foot hurts, she says it. When she's overwhelmed, she tells us. And when someone tries to dismiss her, she looks at me and Jason like she knows we'll back her up. I used to think being a good wife meant staying quiet so my husband wouldn't be torn between sides. Now I know being a good mother means refusing to let anyone, even family, shrink my child. A year ago, Ava was left on a sidewalk because she slowed the family down. Now she's chosen, publicly, on paper, in a courtroom that records truth. And in our home, the only rule that matters is simple. Ava comes first.